Board games, we'll be talking about board games and cosplay, but we're not gonna shout. I am over here, and joining me is the person known as Holly. Holly literally wrote a book, and there's a second one coming out. We might take a look. We'll have a talk about the intersection of board games and cosplay and all the factions of people, and talking about how they choose the look which they will then craft and use to look amazing. That's what they do. Cosplay, maybe it's something for you. Board games and cosplay, it's what we're talking about. Board games and cosplay. I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. UK time, busy beats and board game bladder. And thank you, Holly, for joining me.
Hello, that was a fun intro. I enjoyed that.
Excellent, I'm glad to hear. And it's always interesting to see people's reactions and if they've watched the show before or if they haven't. But today we were introduced by VJ, a mutual friend who used to be a big part of we used to hang out a bit more back in the day when there were conventions regularly. I mean, that's starting up again, to be fair.
In the mists of time, you know.
Yeah, do you remember those days 2019? That was a good year, right?
It was actually. I missed 2019.
It
was great.
Yeah. Oh wow. It's that old phrase, hindsight is 2020. I wonder if people will be using it so much now. If it will be kind of going out of fashion. Whether it was actually a message sent by time travelers to warn us that, hey, 2020, watch out for it.
Guys. Oh.
I think they should have been less cryptic.
Yeah.
I mean, if they actually, but yeah, how do you prove that you're a time traveler coming back to warn everyone of a pandemic? How would you even do that?
I don't know. I think, to be honest, you probably shouldn't. Just, even if you're a time traveler, just leave it. Just be like, I've left the message. We'll see what happens. Otherwise, you might get burned at the stake or put in a mental asylum or something. Depends on your time period of choice.
Yeah, I mean, even nowadays, I mean, let's not go too far down this rabbit hole.
No, it's a bit of a tangent.
I could also see it getting quite dark, but we are going to talk about cosplay. You have literally written a book about it. I'm not going to say the book because there is more than one book.
There's definitely more than one book.
Yeah. But you have written a book about it, which at that point you clearly put into it. The first book is about film and TV. The second book is about manga, anime, video games, cosplay. And then I thought, but you are into board games, and I thought it would just be really interesting to have the conversation. Why aren't board games getting more cosplay? I go around UK Games Expo and there's one person in a fancy fish costume, which was really cool. But
to be honest, when you look at board game art and stuff like that, the stuff that I buy board games often based on how beautiful the art is, and then I'm always sometimes a bit like, maybe this game wasn't as good as the art made out, but the art is really good still, so it's fine, and I'm still going to enjoy playing it. But there are so many things that you could pick from, and I just wonder whether maybe it's not quite inched its way in there yet. But tabletop gaming is getting a huge amount of cosplay support now, from people making their own characters from their games to people cosplaying from things like Critical Role and the Adventure Zone and all that kind of stuff. So I think we're probably going to see cosplayers are always looking for a new thing to do, to be something interesting, all that sort of stuff. I mean, I've seen people cosplaying from you've talked about Magic the Gathering has a lot. I mean, again, the art's so interesting, and what
and Warhammer, people really identify as these planeswalker because you are a planeswalker, but then you summon these other planeswalkers to be your allies and are the big personalities in the game. And hello, good morning, Adam. And it is love. Yes, absolutely, we do love a tangent. I agree. Adam from Die Rolling. But yeah, I mean, let's take a step back. Speaking of tangents, I think we've been on topic for long enough.
I know.
So let's take a step back. And what have you been up to recently? Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. What have you
feel
been
like
up to of late? I had a great day of playtesting yesterday. I played two of my own games. One of them's a game about speed drafting, so it was inspired by drafting. I'm not sure if it's still drafting, but you're grabbing these cards, but it's a really slow speed game because there's intentionally quite a lot of text to read on the cards. So you've got to analyze them all and make strategic decisions as quickly as you can to grab the card before someone else grabs the card. And then you get a break for about 3 seconds, and it's 3, 2, 1, flip. Look at all the markets, quickly grab one before the other one does. And it seems to be working well. I'm really happy with it. People really like the card, the party planner, where the party planner needs cake and music and a party hat. And then if you've got all those things, then you get bonus points because, hey, party. And so I'm going to try and bring in more combo-rific cards like that. We played AU by Gavin Birnbaum, amazing game. General Recall by Reva, lovely, charming game. We played a game by me, which is about making sets to make sets, and it's an idea that I really wanted to make work. It's the third time that I was trying it, but I'm giving up. It's okay to give up. Sometimes it's just, better off working on something else, and it frees you up, frees up your energy. But it was an amazing day yesterday. I want to say I made the reddest stir fry ever. It was beetroots, radishes, carrots, all mixed in, and there was also a tiny bit of mushrooms, which added a bit of softness to all the crunch, and a bit of noodles. And it had a friend over. We played Present, a Korean game, which I'm not sure either I put it on Board Game Geek or it's still not on Board Game Geek. I can't remember if I bothered to do it, but it's one of those little known games that you might have gotten if you were there at Essen on the day. And it's kind of like Hacker Lack and Poker. You give presents to your friends, try to say it's a gift, and then they're reading your face, saying whether they want it or not. This is a speed counting game. I'll talk about these a bit more tomorrow. And Imagician, I'm still loving this. This is connected dots taken to the next level. You've just got to, if you imagine digital hidden object games, you're searching for the objects and then you're connecting them. And at some point, it's like, whoa, like that gives you an idea. One of them could be a butterfly, but I hope not, because then it's kind of been spoiled by. But to be fair, if 1 out of 200 cards has been spoiled by them, I can kind of forgive them. And halfway through that's a bit, oh, that's the one from the cover. Maybe it'll be lovely moments of recognition. You're kind of drawing, and there's symbols to say whether you draw a circle around something, or whether you draw lines, or whether it's a curved line. And so your drawing ends up with a lovely picture, and then you need to be the first person to say, this is what it is. Lovely game. Those are my recent highlights.
Doing got a bit ASMR tracing the box art. I was like, why isn't there more ASMR about board games?
And Adam, I love this, who says, I imagine you're a fan of ready meals.
Love a pun.
Yes. And yes, playtest was brilliant. And so, yes, Adam, Holly, what have you been up to? What's been your recent highlights over the
What have I been doing?
past couple of days?
I actually set up a new business. Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
I set up a so I have been for a long time an activist within the LGBTQIA plus community. But unfortunately, in my mid-20s even, I got a bit burnt out and a bit kind of like I can't engage as much as I'd like to. And so over the last few months, I've sort of been reuniting myself with that part of myself and ended up deciding how I could be an activist and not burn out again, because obviously as a writer and a creative, I already have that worry a lot of the time. So I've set up an educational business for going into businesses, schools, charities, all that kind of stuff to do short form courses. So maximum of 2 hours, educating people about how to make workplaces and educational environments LGBTQIA friendly and how to use inclusive language, all that kind of stuff, because I think a lot of places are still struggling with how to understand. And, I think often if you are within the community or in activism communities particularly, you kind of forget that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know what you know or doesn't necessarily have those conversations. So it's essentially about taking the conversations that we have out into the wider world and having them with other people on whatever level they need to interact with it, because some people are going to be, have no idea, and some people are going to have some knowledge already, and some people are going to know everything. So it's quite, it's good, and that's only been live for like a week and a half now, and I'm already having like this weird anxiety of like, oh, nobody wants to hire me, which is not true because I already have 2 people who want to hire me. But it's just like, oh no, I didn't get flooded instantly with love. What? It's always the way, isn't it? You're like, but I have such a good idea. Oh, thank you, Adam.
And yeah, I agree with everything that Adam's writing there. Like, congratulations, it sounds really positive and really meaningful, and something that's needed, as Adam said. I mean,
to do that at the same time as writing a novel is insane because I am doing both things at the same time and applying for like artist grants. I think I might just be wanting to burn myself out again, but we'll find out. See what happens.
I think, everyone does go through cycles. I read, this is going to be our one swear for the show, but I read a book called Bullshit Jobs. Have you heard of this?
No, it sounds funny.
It's a really good book. It's basically advocating for universal basic income. It delves into what is play, what is a job, what is, responsibility, what is a boss. And one bit of the book was about, in the old days when people were sewing things, they would kind of quite often chant rhythm. And on the Monday, they would be working a bit more slowly. And then on the Friday, they would be working more quickly, like at the end of the week. And so they would actually go through a cycle. And the point is that you can't always work at the same rates. Yeah. And I think this
I had
is
to write down what that book was called because I want to read it now. It sounds good.
Ourselves. Yes, absolutely. I do recommend it to everyone. The point is that we need to be sensitive to ourselves. We can't expect ourselves to be working at peak efficiency all the time. We can't expect ourselves to be working at 70% efficiency all the time. It's not right to say, okay, I'll work a bit slower and then I'll have more energy. No, you can't do that. If you've got the energy, embrace it. Embrace the passion for that moment. And
I mean, like this week, I realized, I've been super lucky in having road work outside my house for 3 nights in a row until like 3 a.m. So I barely got any sleep. And then basically on Thursday, I went, you know what? I'm not even going to attempt to work today. It's not happening. I'm exhausted. I don't know how parents do it with newborns. I'm like, oh my goodness, madness. But like, I just was like, I can't do it. I can't work today because the world has conspired against me. And you know what? I didn't feel guilty about it because it was just the situation. So not too bad, but yeah, sometimes I think you get a bit into those spirals, don't you? Of like, oh no, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough.
I mean, when you're working for yourself, it's really easy to just feel like you always have to do stuff and you always have to be doing the things. And one thing I did recently is I said, okay, Monday's always going to be a day off for me. And I'm going to try and like at least one day off, like kind of, sure, I do my stream every day, but like at least from like 11 o'clock, I try to not even look at social media. I try to make time to, if I want to play games on my mobile phone, I will have a walk outside, although I try to do that a bit more often anyway. And just like carve out bits of time and chunks of time for me.
Yeah.
And like, recently I signed up to dancing. And hello, Josie, who also recommends the book. Thank you for joining us as always. And yeah, it's just super important. Like yesterday, I've got to be honest, last night, I should have maybe read a book, gone to bed, but then I did end up, you know what? I watched a couple of videos from Quinn's People Make Games. Have you heard of this YouTube channel, People Make Games? There's a video, I don't want to name the company that they attack because sometimes if you name a bad company, then people will remember the company but then forget the context in which they heard it. But I will send that link out on Twitter and stuff later on today. I watched the original video, the second video, and also the unlisted video that they said, don't bother watching this. We only made this because we basically had to, because the company told us to respond to this third-party blog post, which is a really, really weird situation. So we spent 50 minutes doing it. And then because they were like, your video is wrong. And they were, what's wrong about it? And we were like, your video. And then they had this back. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting another tangent. But we've enjoyed things. We've had some highlights. Let's talk about.
Oh, 1 second. I'm really sorry.
Okay, let's talk about brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So
Really
we're
sorry
talking
about
about brilliant things. Cosplay. Why is cosplay brilliant? Why might more people want to do cosplay? Why would you encourage it? Why are you writing about it? Why do you want to do it?
I mean, so I've cosplayed since I was 15, and I'm now 29. So that's a long time. It's a long time. And I just think it's a brilliant. To be honest, I think it's one of those hobbies that gives you a way to explore and understand yourself out in a sort of safe environment. You're not going out and being like, I'm gonna necessarily like find myself. You don't need to kind of actively decide that's what you're going to do. You kind of you can start it in one, like just as a fan of something, or just because you want to try making something, all this sort of stuff. But it ends up being about, I think for almost everybody, there almost always is an element of finding who you are as a person through this activity, especially if you start as a teenager or like in your 20s and all that sort of stuff. But not necessarily. I've known people who start in their 40s and 50s and suddenly go, oh my God, there's this whole new side to myself I didn't know about. There's this whole person I didn't know about. But a lot of it is kind of comes down to, honestly, just like I said, self-exploration and enjoyment and pleasure of doing something that is kind of purely for you, but it's not necessarily a selfish thing. It's not like I'm just thinking about me, because there's a community and there's an environment and you interact with people all the time. And there are so many different ways of interacting with it online, social media, through, community support, like groups, meetups, all that kind of stuff, as well as going to conventions and doing it that way. And then, of course, there's a competitive element as well for some people who want that. So I think there is this thing of like, you can buy costumes now, which is amazing. When I started, you couldn't even buy patterns for costumes outside of like basic Halloween ones, and now there's so much. But you kind of do the making, you do the buying, you put everything together, you create your outfit, and there's an enjoyment that is almost an individualistic enjoyment in that, because you're doing that in your own time, in your own space. And if you want to do it with other people, you can, but it's mostly just doing something for yourself, which I think a lot of the modern world doesn't really allow us. We don't have time to play. We don't have time to just spend moments thinking.
It is putting yourself at the center of attention, which it's not for everyone, but it can be a glorious thing to say, hey, look at me. And it's not just I made a thing and you're looking over there at the thing. It's I made a thing and the thing is now on my body. The thing is my face, like the makeup and everything that I'm doing to resemble this other character.
Exactly.
Hey, look at this.
But I don't think it's necessarily narcissistic either, because I think there's a certain amount of essentially going, I think because a lot of people who cosplay, they maybe have struggled in areas. I mean, I know a lot of people who use cosplay to help their mental health, and I think that's a really good thing, is that if you are somebody who is very, has had a hard time with your mental health, and having a moment where you put yourself first, where you put yourself in that spotlight, is really important to do. You can't deny that. And I think sometimes people might be like, oh, isn't that just be like, look at me, I'm the big man, but it's not. I don't think, I mean, of course there'll be somebody who's like that, you can't say there isn't, but like for the most part, I think
honestly, like so much of my creative work, like I put a list recently, someone said, oh, why do you do this? And number one for me is validation, but that's okay. I think that it's okay to feel like, hey, I want to be the center of attention when you're performing, when you're dancing, when you're doing some sort of performance art, and cosplay itself is a form of performance art.
It absolutely is a form of, and I think there's also a massive community element to it as well, because there is this thing, like I said, the sort of individualistic, the time for yourself, the making time for yourself, and making space for yourself. But you do that within your stretching time. You do it within your community, and you're doing it to help your community, and you're doing it as part of what they are like trying to, I guess, achieve in inverted commas, because everybody who is cosplaying is representing everybody else who's cosplaying. And so I think that to say that it's just about the self is essentially, it's kind of relative. It's understanding you are a person, you can have time, you can have fun, and then going, cool, I want to give that to my community at the same time, which sounds really like highbrow when it's probably less than that. And I don't think most people think about it at that level. But oh, Bez, you are unfortunately muted.
Oh, thank you. I do apologize for that. I think saying that you're representing other people can be sometimes problematic. I know this is a section where I like to just gush, but I do want to say, like, if you are, whatever your identity is, I don't think you should ever have to feel like you're a spokesperson for this, for like, I'm not I shouldn't be representative of trans women. Like, what I do, it's not like, okay, I shouldn't have it on me to be representative of Iranian people. I shouldn't have it on me to be like, oh, you're not Scottish enough, or you're representative, because people already have a fixed idea of what Scotland means, but they might not have an idea of what Iran means, because a lot of people in the UK might not be so. But again, I do agree with you that there is the bringing in awareness. And I think it goes back to what Adam said. Isn't it great how society is more accepting of nerd and geek culture? Where I think that the other brilliant thing is not only are you doing it for yourself and enjoying the creation and all that stuff, but you are also bringing awareness. If someone says, oh, who are you? Is this some sort of cosplay? You might say, oh, yes, this is from this and that thing. Then they'll say, oh, cool, that sounds really fun. What's it all about? And you might get into a conversation about it, and you might expose someone else to this thing that you really love.
Yeah. And I think, like, when I say that, like, I feel like it was the wrong sort of turn of phrase, but like, I think the community element often is about finding your tribe, you know? And so I think if you're able to kind of have that moment of the self and everyone else, you can kind of be both at the same time. And I think that's really important for humans. We are social creatures. So like being able to go, I've taken time to listen to me and what I need. And now I have the energy, I have the ability, I have the moment to now be social for others or with others and for myself. And I think cosplay is a large part of that. I mean, talking with a couple of people when I was researching my books, I think that there's a lot of what cosplay is, which is essentially just the next evolution of what humans have kind of always done. We've always enjoyed dressing up. Like, you go back to like prehistoric times, and there's people making masks out of bark
100%.
and cloaks out of animal skins and embodying themselves with character of some description. Humans love it.
Let's take a step back, and I would like to delve into what is cosplay, because obviously we know it's kind of to do with making these costumes, dressing up with these costumes and playing as a character, maybe someone, but I'd like to address kind of the blurry lines to understand whether is it cosplay. Let me run you through some hypothetical situations. Okay, I think of an anime. The anime does not exist. The anime is called Super Monster Drinkers, where there's like one character who looks exactly like me, but has the best thigh-high red boots. I put on these thigh-high red boots, so I say, yes, I am this character from this fictional anime, but it doesn't really exist. Is that cosplay? Or is it just pretending to cosplay?
Honestly, I think it's cosplay, because it's really weird, because I think essentially what it is you've kind of created that thing. That's justifiably the same as saying you're cosplaying as your own original character. Like,
so original characters are okay. That's cosplay. That was going to be a question. Okay, the next question is, okay, real situation. I've 5 years ago or whatever it was, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to conventions. I'm going to wear red. I've developed this persona, and like now when I go to playtest, when I stream, I make sure that I'm wearing a good amount of red. Is that cosplay when it seeps into all of my life?
Oh, see, that's quite interesting. I think probably it kind of is on that blurred line, because what you've done is created a persona for yourself, which is a bit more similar to things like drag or stagecraft. So you're kind of creating a version of you that is for this particular area. So I would say probably not, because it's specifically your creation for you. And
so it's not
it is
a
more of a
creation that I
version of
want
yourself
to invite other people in. So cosplay is more like a character that you would invite other people to also play. So then,
it's difficult. Like I said, I don't think there is. It's a very blurred line where the thing is, because it may be that someone thinks, I love this thing. You know, the Sanders sides by Thomas Sanders. He made those on YouTube to represent his own emotions and to tell and describe how he was feeling about things. People now cosplay those, even though they are extensions of him that he created for the same purposes you kind of described. So it's a very blurred line, and I don't necessarily think there is a definitive
I have actually had
idea.
one person cosplay as me, which was really interesting, because there's another person called Bez, but what they did is they kind of put glasses similar to the glasses that I normally wore. I just kind of got up, but then at the time I had to like moustache. I was kind of reducing my facial hair like slowly, but anyway, it was quite funny how they were. I'm this, and I'm you, and anyway. And they were also volunteering for me at the convention, so it did get slightly confusing.
That's quite funny.
Anyway, the last thing is, let's imagine you are buying a costume, but this isn't a costume that's been made for you. It's like there's been 1,000 of this particular costume made. It's a mass-produced thing. You buy this costume, it's a Sailor Moon or whatever, and then you put it on and you go around. You
That's
don't
cosplay,
draw
yeah.
attention to it.
I mean,
you
that's
just
how
incorporate into your outfit.
I think it's okay. So if you're being difficult, because I would say that to a greater or lesser extent, that is a level of cosplay because you've bought a costume, but you could then argue that essentially what you're doing is incorporating into alternative fashion. It depends, I guess, on how much you want it to be the character piece or how much you're enjoying it as a fashion item. Because like lots of people would say that like alternative fashion does blur lines onto costume because there is a certain element of character creation involved in, like you said, the personas, creating a version of yourself that is shown through your clothes. Like I don't so much anymore, but I used to be very heavily involved in the Lolita scene. I absolutely love the Japanese Lolita style. I think it's just bonkers brilliant. But I always kind of felt like when I was wearing those, I was a version of myself that was more of a costume. And more of a kind of a make-believe version of me. So I kind of saw it as that, which was really interesting. And I don't know if that's true of other people in alternative fashion or whether actually they really like that's the version of themselves they've created for alternative fashion is actually the version of themselves that they prefer being, because obviously we all have different ways we show ourselves. And cosplay, I think, is just a very extreme version of that you're putting on clothes and an outfit and all that kind of stuff to become a literal character. So, you know, like I said, it's a very blurred line, and you could always argue that alternative fashion and cosplay bump heads against each other every so often, and you know they do cross streams, as it were. But it's difficult, and obviously people who do alternative fashion wouldn't want you to say that their outfit was a costume, because it's not. It's their clothes, it's their way of life, it's their, you know, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's the thing. Like for me, I'm just. Yeah, I might actually show you my laundry. So I just did some laundry yesterday. So here we've got these are the leggings that I sleep in. They're quite warm and are already dry, even though I just washed them last night. You know, that kind of lovely material. But yeah, this is my clothes. So
wow, it's a lot of red.
There's tiny bits of white you might be able to see.
Yeah.
But but there is a question of how much of it is a persona you've adapted, how much of it is just you. And as you say, there is definitely a blurry line between cosplay and LARP, kind of do it where you essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, but would you agree that you cosplay as the character that you're then role-playing as?
Yeah, again, LARP kind of, I think, comes at, so I would say there's what I would call the costuming hobbies. There's sort of an umbrella term. So you have cosplay, LARP, reenactment. You could even just about include drag underneath that, though I think that's an argument to the drag community. They can decide.
I think
themselves.
Wherever we draw the separation isn't the key thing.
Yeah.
The point is that everything is on a big continuum. And if
absolutely.
I'm going out, you know, dancing, I'm not going to wear my trainers because it's impractical, because you want less grip, you want smooth soles. But then within that, there's the, okay, I want to wear something that's going to fit in a little bit more here. I might, you know, dress up a little bit, like put on something that will look quite nice when I do my little exhibula, like the little turn.
Yeah.
And then when I'm having, obviously, if you have someone over for consensual adult activities, you might wear something a little bit more erotically charged. You know, that's obviously not a part of yourself. That is still a part of yourself. But I think all of these costumes are bringing out parts that are potentially there.
Absolutely.
But it feels like where it stops being primarily yourself and where it starts being primarily a different character is going to be different points for everyone out
Exactly.
there.
And I think some people, like, that for everybody, I think there's also different levels of kind of thought process involved, because I think some people are going to be like, they want to get their Captain America costume, they want to put it on, they want to wear it to the convention, and that's kind of the end of it. That's it, and that's brilliant, and they have fun and they have a great time, and they absolutely enjoy, you know, having those moments. But for other people, it might be that they want to spend a little, they want to kind of be like, oh, I really identify with this character and I want to cosplay them, and I want to maybe find myself a bit more, and or, you know, on that kind of thing. And for others, like I said, who maybe have anxiety, maybe have mental health problems, maybe have just a bit shy, don't know how to, you know, wearing the costume might be like, oh, this character makes me more confident, and so I'm going to take elements of this costume and integrate it into my everyday wardrobe in some one way or another, whether that be color scheme, like you said, with the reds, or whether that be actually taking like the Sailor Moon outfit idea, you know, that kind of thing, and bringing some element of that into their daily lives to become more of the person they are when they're in a costume. That's something that a lot of people do as well. So I think there's, like you said, there's different elements along the spectrum, and it can definitely be lots of different things. I mean, I think it's really interesting that lots of people look at cosplay and go, oh, it's making things and wearing them. And I'm here going, no, it's super philosophical, and there's like this whole thing of, you know,
I
like,
can definitely get that.
it's so
And
much more about that.
we've had a wee bit of chats from Josie and Adam talking about the attention to detail and how people create and struggle when they pick at what's not 100% the same as the original, says Josie. Also, there's this lovely idea Josie mentioned. For my 40th, I got all my guests to cosplay as me. And I do love that. That just seems, yeah, brilliant and hilarious.
About the 100% original idea as well, I wrote a large section of the second book, which I was quite pleased with, that essentially talks about design work and how you can tweak and work a costume into fitting to you, whether that's because maybe you have a different body type than the original character, or whether because you love the character but maybe they're not wearing, you know, they're wearing a little bit less than you would like to wear, you know, you want to make yourself feel comfortable as them, or you want to do like a redesign because you want to try and do maybe an AU or add some more details, or, you know, all that kind of thing. I think the example I used was redesigning Luke Skywalker.
And sometimes you have to do it just because of reality, because you can't look like a cartoon. I did a burlesque show, true story. I did it like 3 or 4 times. I kept getting asked back, which was nice. It was fun. And then I was Red Bomberman. So obviously, you know, Bomberman's a Super Nintendo game. And so I was Red Bomberman. Like originally I wanted to be classic Bomberman, the white one. And then I was, oh, I need this and this and this, but it doesn't quite work. And then the person said, oh, why don't you just be Red Bomberman? And so I was like, I hadn't even considered that. Like I just wanted to go, and then, but even with the, you know, I didn't have the pom-pom, but I did have a square head, which was literally a cardboard box that I kept on my head with like the big eye anyway. But you need to have these little concessions for reality.
I think so.
Anyway,
I think
let's go on another tangent because we've been on topic for too long and we need to rush through the questionably quick questions. Are you ready for the questionably quick questions?
I think so.
Okay, so firstly, what is the last game you played?
Last board game or video game?
Board game.
Board game. That will have been Taco Cab Pizza, I think. Something. Does that count as a board
like
game? It's a card game.
Nuts.
Yeah, that
I know
one.
the one you mean.
That, or possibly I played Exploding Unicorns. I haven't actually played like a board game recently. It's been more card games, but you know.
I mean, that all counts. I kind of just meant, but anything that you'd find on Board Game Geek, What is the first board game that you can remember playing?
Oh god, it'll probably be something like Scrabble or Monopoly. Old school, you know, probably something like that. I definitely hate Scrabble, so I probably have memories of that. I'm dyslexic. It's a rubbish game. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so let's talk about the fall of Holly. What's a mistake that you made? What's something that potentially you regret? Can you think of anything? Is there anything you're willing to share?
Oh, everything. The amount of times where I'll be like, oh, I didn't say that right, or I didn't mean that to come out like this, or you know, that kind of thing. That's like a constant pressure, I feel like, in my life. Possibly maybe, to be honest, maybe with the last book I wrote, I maybe regret not making it clearer that it was a a second book to follow on from the first book. They work together. You have to read them together, because I've had a few reviews of people being very confused that certain things weren't mentioned. I'm like, no, because they're in the first book. And it's like, maybe I didn't make that clear enough. And I do regret that.
Hindsight is, lost
exactly. I didn't
2 years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I was writing it, I was like, I don't want to like make people think they have to go and buy this other book. I want them to feel, but then at the same time,
Well,
it's like,
at
it's
that
the balance,
point,
isn't it?
Yeah. Do you like umbrellas?
I do. They keep me dry.
What's been the last thing that surprised you?
Oh, last thing that surprised me. I don't know. Probably something at Christmas. Probably like a Christmas present.
Was that surprising?
No, not surprising enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Yeah, probably the a very cool Christmas present, which I can actually show you because it's here from my partner, which is a embosser. Whoa. It's for embossing books, and it's got like my name and stuff on it, and it's got like a little symbol for me, which is great. And I had no idea they were getting me that, and it's really nice.
That is lovely.
And as a big nerdy geek human, that was obviously something I thought was great. So,
can I ask? You said you're into Lolita fashion. Did you also enjoy playing with dolls as a child?
No.
Okay. Did you ever have a dog?
Nope.
Ever have a parrot?
No.
Do you like sweets?
I like chocolate. I don't really like sweets.
I love chocolates as well. I've recently gotten into 100% cocoa.
Really? I'm not. I actually really like white chocolate. I'm that person.
Okay. Are you an argumentative person?
I can be. I definitely can be.
Good of you to at least admit it. Are you a sporting person?
Yeah, I am. I used to be a competitive swimmer and swimming coach. Less so now, but I still swim. I still do yoga and Pilates. Does that count as sport? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And I have this year decided that I should learn to jog properly, because apparently you have there's a proper way to do it. So that's the thing that I'm going to try and do. That's like my goal.
Can you give us a couple of quick tips about jogging? Is it all about getting your foot on the heel and then lifting off on the toe?
Honestly, I don't really understand it. I think it's about like making sure it's about the way you put your feet down. And I've only just started looking at YouTube videos and things, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
The final thing, let's say you were right now in a supermarket. You are going round, you've got a shopping trolley, and you're allowed to put in 3 things that you would like to have in your house just for daily sustenance, or, just everyday things that you would buy. What 3 things would you get? And in second part to the question, if someone was going to go into the magical supermarket where they would start getting into cosplay, what 3 things would you suggest someone buys?
Okay, so one of the things, I'm assuming I can have absolutely anything, is like one of those cool bookshelves with a ladder that you can roll along. That would definitely be one of them. Probably this just shows that I'm a writer. A really nice desk, like a really like a good proper Victorian writing desk, like that. And it's probably very boring, but a PlayStation 5, because I want one.
No. I was expecting it all to be like just toilet roll, tins.
No. If I'm allowed anything in this magic supermarket, I'm going big.
No, I like it. Those are very good answers.
As for cosplay stuff, I would definitely say the Sewing Bible, which is a big red. Maybe it's called the Sewing Book now because they changed the title, but it's a big red book by Dawn and Kingsley, and it's everything. It's the best book I could ever recommend to learning to sew. I think I've referenced it actually several times in my own books, being like, if you want to learn to sew, get this book, because I have to say, I didn't put any single like proper tutorials or anything like that in either book. I put more like where to look.
At a certain point, you kind of want to say, well, if this thing exists, you kind of want to contribute to the thing that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, exactly. I kind of was like, there's so many amazing books by sewing teachers, people who really know their stuff, people and cosplayers, and like there's so much on YouTube that I would much rather like point people in that direction to be like, here's some basics. Go over here and have a look at these people. because it made more sense, especially since those people have qualifications and, you know, years of experience that I don't have in those areas, because, you know, not everyone knows everything. And I tend to be more of a seamster.
List of recommendations at the back of a book is such a great thing. Like Jeff Engelstein's Game Tech, and he said, oh yeah, by the way, these are some books that I found really invaluable over the past few years. And I think they actually, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, they wrote just a couple of sentences about each one, saying, so you could decide whether it's a book that you might want to buy and read through
pretty
next.
much what I did is, like, I talked about them and then went, all the references are in the back, you can go and find them. I recommend these books for these things.
Amazing.
You know, I did it in sections even. I was literally like, if you're interested in history, these books. If you're interested in this particular craft, this one, you know, like that, because it felt like I wanted to point people in that direction rather than necessarily having to fill the book up myself. And obviously that wasn't for everybody. You know, you shouldn't read your own reviews, but like obviously some people wanted tutorials from this book, but like, and I was like,
that, I think like reading your reviews, like don't put too much truck into them. Like I've got someone, and I can't say that I used to be like, it was something like, oh, I hate games that make you look foolish, and this is the worst of that garbage. And then I was really down about this for ages, because like, how could they say something so mean about one of my games? And then like I told Charlie Paul on the ride back from Essen, and then Charlie was like, you don't understand. Like what they're saying is they hate all games of this type, and if they're saying that it's the worst of this garbage, but these types of games are garbage to them, then that probably means that for someone who likes being silly, this is kind of the best. It's the epitomization of that. But yeah, obviously nothing is for everyone, and I've gotten better at accepting that. I don't obsess over these things. I mean, I think that's the important thing. Read them, but don't obsess over them.
Well, that's it. Like I said, that like I said with the mistake, that was the one mistake I made purely because I wanted to be like, oh, I'm a bit annoyed that some people aren't necessarily realizing that, like I said in the reviews. But it was like, it's happened, and maybe
if there's a second edition, you can give it a little tweak.
Yeah, exactly. And just be like, please, there is another book that has these things you want in it. If you wanted these things, the other one is the other one.
Like a little one-page or introduction that says, this book is blah, 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 blah. If you want blah, 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 go to blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, you live and learn, and that, to be honest, these were my first published books, so I'm not going to be mad. It is what it is.
Adam says, I'm the same with comments on my videos. They can make or break me, depending on my mood. It's something I'm working on, and I think it's so important.
I think it's something of all creatives, you know, because you put your work into something, you put your love and your passion into a project, and then if something is negative said about it, you're going to struggle with that. But we all work on it, and we all either, you know, go, oh, you know what, I don't mind too much, that's fine. Or you kind of go, you know what, thank you. That was, like I said, I read those reviews, and I've taken the comment on board to be like, you know what, you're right. I should have done that. Maybe I'll do that next time. And it is what it is. That's kind of, you move forward. So,
and going back quickly to the magical supermarket, because this is going to be a completely different supermarket to the one that we normally experience, or the one that Adam might be at. But in this magical supermarket, you would buy the sewing Bible.
Yeah, sewing Bible. I would definitely recommend that people should also get a sewing machine, and you can actually get one pretty cheap. Like, I know that there's a lot of things where there's a cost element involved in cosplay, and I will not, you know, say that you can do cosplay on a budget. You can do it on a budget, but you kind of have to get the tools first, and maybe the tools are going to be expensive. But you can get a relatively inexpensive sewing machine that will last pretty well. Like, Janome, Brother, and Singer all do like a basic model that you can do a straight stitch and a zigzag on, that'll get you going, and to decide if you want to do it. And that's under £100, or at least it was the last time I checked, which was early last year. So, you know, things may have changed with Brexit and all that kind of stuff. I can't guarantee that, but yeah, you can actually get started with a sewing machine relatively inexpensively. And then the other thing I would say is
fabric of a color of your choice.
Yeah, probably something like that. It depends on, and the thing is, actually, the joy with fabric is you can get fabric in charity shops. You search through charity shops and you can find curtains and bed sheets in almost every single color under the sun. I'm not going to guarantee you'll find everything specific to the costume you're looking for, but you can definitely find a lot. You can also find a lot of clothes to modify. So you can, if you're looking to do cosplay on a budget, that's a really good place to start. And I think a lot of people, as a hobby, you don't necessarily want to throw all your money into it straight away. You want to see if you like it. So I'd look in those places. I would look at, and getting cheap and expensive fabric. But since this is a magic supermarket, get the fabric you want, get everything you want. Get the one that costs like £100 a meter because it's a magic supermarket. So,
Wait, in this magic supermarket, are you getting it for free? I was assuming you still had to pay.
No, this is a magic supermarket, therefore.
So you just kind of pay with smiles.
Yeah,
go like that, and then they give you
it.
Da-da. Hey, you deserve it. On you go.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this. So, yes, let's talk. Tiny. So this is your book. I've got. You sent me pictures, a guide to film and TV cosplay, and there it is, looking very swish with your artfully laden scissors and thread, and
Thank
you can think about cosplay and what happens next. And I've not had a read of it, I have to admit, but it looks very pretty. Are you very chuffed with your book? Are you
I am
feeling
really
a sense
chuffed
of
with
pride?
it. I have to say, I'm really pleased with it. It's just one of those things that kind of happened out of the blue, and then now it's real, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is a thing. I sent you the publisher's page, so you can get it on pretty much every bookshop platform, all of those things that you find it on Waterstones, you find it on Amazon, you'll find it in your local libraries even, which is really exciting. I found it in a local library. That was great. It made me feel happy about that, because I like seeing
when you run into your thing in the wild, that is just the best feeling.
Exactly.
Especially if you didn't put it there. I mean, I see my game at board game cafes quite often, but that's generally because I gave it to them. So it's not quite the same, is it?
I think it's quite, but it's still fun because it means that other people are going to play it. If somebody else is going to read it.
At least it means that they kept it and that they left it there. I mean, they don't keep every game that they get given, so.
Exactly. And I think I would hope that these books, and like with your games, that somebody would pick it up, whether it's because they've picked it up because they've got a friend who's interested in cosplay, or maybe their kid or anything like that, and they give it a read and they are encouraged by it. That one of the big things, and one of the big comments that I've had talking to people over and over again, is that the book is encouraging, that it makes people feel like they can give it a go. They don't feel overwhelmed. They don't feel like this perfect social media version of cosplay. It's more about, I made a massive effort to try and include as many variations of cosplayers as I could, from like across the board, as many different types of people and all that kind of stuff. And as well as like in the text itself, to be like, let's try and be encouraging of, how to get started, where you can do, and all that kind of thing. As well as like the history of it. And I'll be honest, I got really into the history of it, which means that there's quite a lot of it in there because it's interesting.
Because it's what you think is an interesting book, and hopefully other people will feel the same.
Exactly. That was why I wrote it. I wanted it to be something that would make people think twice about what cosplay is, and that they could be involved in it, rather than seeing it as this version. I think there's a very specific version that's presented through both social media and the main mass media.
I mean, remembering that, I guess it doesn't need to be perfect, even though the photos you've taken are of people you're always going to show photos that are amazing and people doing the best stuff, but it can be, like when I did my burlesque outfits, I'm trying to remember what I did. Like, I had the red heels, I had the red stockings, I had, the red skirts and the red underwear, and I did have a red vest that, like, eventually, like, at one point I kind of held it because I did a kind of section of the burlesque. It was quite ridiculous. I gave birth, but I kind of gave birth to a bomb because, I'm Bomberman.
Yeah.
And so I kind of made a tiny bomb just out top. But the bit that I actually spent bits of time on was this cardboard box with spray paints and like doing great big eyes and cutting it out and making sure that it could. But in doing that assemblage, and even though it was stuff that I had around the house, except for I had the cardboard box, but I got the spray paints and spent like a couple of days on it, and I was quite chuffed. Like there was a picture of me in Kotaku, and then they took it down like a couple of years later when I went to look for it again, which was why did they do that? But anyway. But yeah, people responded well to it, and I think you don't need to be like, okay, this is going to be a big part of my life. It can be a small project.
Yeah.
You don't even need to buy a sewing machine. You could maybe find someone, ask if you can borrow them, or ask if you can have a go-unders if you know a friend. who can do something, see if you like it. See, I mean, if
There's
you've
so
got
many
them.
ways to have a go, and I think the other thing, of course, is like that you can relatively inexpensively now, because of how popular cosplay is becoming, you can buy costumes that are completely fully made and finished and look really good. And you're not going to break the bank with those either. You're going to be able to buy something and have a go, whether and then you can decide how you feel about it. You're not going to be able to find every character under the sun. If they're a more obscure character, you're probably not going to be able to find it. But if you want to have a go at being Spider-Man, or like you said, Sailor Moon, or anything from a popular anime or video game, you're likely to be able to find that costume, and probably variations on that costume if it comes to like things like My Hero Academia and stuff like that. You can find a billion different versions of them, and have a go and just try. And I think that's the thing that I really wanted to convey, was you can just have a go. There is a billion different ways to try it. There are a billion different skills involved, and you can pick and choose what you want to do and
you
how
have
much
to
you
work
want
out which bits are interesting to you, whether it's a creative bit, the self-expressive bit, or the taking on this role of a particular person. But before we finish, I would like to delve into the board gaming cosplay kind of aspect that we haven't really talked about.
No,
like your books have been, your first book. So there we go. Your first book was film and TV.
Yeah.
And your second book is a guide to manga, anime, and video game cosplay.
Yeah.
And, that makes sense. Like, these are more popular. You go into an anime convention, of course, you'll see so many people identifying as their characters. So why is it that it's not such a big thing in board game culture? Is it because outside of we already mentioned Magic the Gathering, which has books written about it by the people, and it's got these really strong planeswalkers, and it is, I think, one of the very few non-digital games that's in the top 10 grossing games out there. Because if you look at the top 10, it's like Magic the Gathering and 9 video games. Is it because of the popularity?
Yeah, I think it's to do with fandom. Actually, because I think Magic the Gathering specifically has a fandom that's dedicated just to it, whereas I think most people who enjoy board games, and obviously I am guessing, and this is a generalization, I think most people who enjoy board games as a whole tend to enjoy lots of different board games rather than specifically focusing in on one. And I think as well, Magic the Gathering, like you said, has a huge amount of lore to do with it, the same as Warhammer, the same as a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons, all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of lore and a lot of work, a lot of the huge amounts of books, huge amounts to buy and get involved in.
And as you play, obviously, a role-playing game, you're even more getting into the story and embodying these characters.
Exactly. And so I think that's more likely the case, is that because they have lore and huge amounts of resources and all that kind of stuff, rather than just maybe a one-off single game, you're more likely to see people getting very heavily into a fandom element of that, and a kind of more of a tribal, in inverted commas, group element to them, where they talk to other people about it, and that kind of back and forth grows that into somewhere that you might be looking for, where people are more likely to cosplay. I mean, I think that you're going to start seeing it in board games now because they're becoming more and more popular. I think people are like, they're moving. It's kind of one of those things. I think it's almost like a gradual slide that you kind of saw. We started off with, the sci-fi and Star Trek and all that kind of stuff. That's the early, very early days. And then you move into the manga and the anime and the video games, and superheroes have obviously been a big thing. You move across, and then suddenly we've hit tabletop gaming because it's become relatively big. And that's moving and moving and moving. And that will, I think, you'll move into board games because people are always looking for new designs, always looking for new things. And as we said at the beginning, there is such amazing artwork around a lot of board games. And I think if there's, board games that are out there are likely to be able to find a niche. Like, so there'll be one out there that manages to be like, we've created enough content now to grab somebody and they'll cosplay as this. And I'm sure there already are people who are doing that. I know a friend of mine cosplayed as somebody from Guild Ball. That's wargaming, isn't it?
Adam mentions that, I completely forgot about this, but I have seen a couple of Instagram accounts where people are, dressing up as someone from the cover of a board game, and they'll usually have this photo where they show a card or they show a thing in like one of the slides, and then in the other slide it'll be them dressed up, and it's, wow, they look really good.
Yeah.
But I think it's maybe not trickled down to the point yet where you would see someone at a board game convention dressed up as a board game
And I think
character.
that's the other thing as well, is that because like it took a long time for comic book conventions to kind of not see cosplayers as interlopers. Like I remember when I first started cosplaying, there was still this kind of attitude amongst a lot of the hardcore comic nerds that we shouldn't be there, which is obviously not the case anymore. And to be honest, at the time was kind of, I feel like there was a little bit of a root in just feeling a little bit uncertain and uncomfortable about it, and rather than necessarily actually disliking it, it was more like, we don't understand it. And I think maybe that's the case, that board game conventions still haven't, they kind of have their structure and how things work. And so maybe they're moving more, we're still kind of just taking a little bit of time to progress into that cosplay would be seen there. And if they're, because if you're only seeing 1 or 2 people there, other people are less likely to be encouraged to do it. They're more likely to think, oh, I do want to cosplay, but I'll do it at another event where there's a lot of cosplayers. So I feel
we need to kind
safer,
of see a critical mass.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like maybe if a group of people went together to one event, that would probably like tip the scales slightly, because they'd be all there like, yeah, we're together, we're having a great time.
UK Games Expo does kind of promote it in that they do have the cosplay competition. Yep. And so it's not like there's a big prize, but like, you get up on your stage, it's like, a bit of applause and well done.
Really
and
so it's really fun.
And I'm assuming what I notice is that, so many people are cosplaying as people from outside of board games, and that's fair. Like, there's the Doctor Who, there's, all sorts of things where, yeah, sure, there's a Doctor Who game, but it's not really board game cosplay, is it?
Yeah.
And in the same way, like, there's a Dragon Ball Z board game, but that's not really board game cosplay.
Well, it would be like if I wore my Resident Evil costume. I cosplay as Leon from Resident Evil. There are Resident Evil board games, but, Resident Evil is specifically a video game, so it's not quite the same thing. And I think we're probably going to see, I think we will start to see more of it, but I think it has to start like that, where people are just feeling safe. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but kind of feeling safe and secure enough to necessarily wear any costume to an event. And because there is a level of that, you are, like I said at the beginning, you are putting yourself out there. You're kind of making yourself the center of the attention. And whether that's what you actively want or not, because a lot of the time it's just, I want to wear my costume because I love costumes. Honestly, genuinely, it's like, I just want to wear this because I love costumes. But then you get to an event and maybe people are staring at you or something. That can be a little off-putting. But I think, like you said, if there's competitions and other people there and you kind of feel safe, even if they're not in costume, they're going, oh my God, you look great. People are encouraging about it. As with any creative thing, people come up to you and tell you, your board game's great, or, oh, this book you've written is great. I think that element of it will really encourage more people to cosplay at board game conventions and cosplay as board game characters. It's about, making the space safe, making it inclusive. It's what I talk about all the time.
I think this is honestly something that I had not considered, is the truth, when we talk about the safety and confidence of just being able to cosplay. And I think that having these competitions showing that it's not only tolerated, but it's actually encouraged and celebrated. And then, if publishers start saying, wow, look at this cool thing, not just when it's their game, but also sometimes when it's someone else's thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. And having these Instagram accounts, and I do want to talk very quickly, if I may, for 30 seconds, about at a convention in Edinburgh, when they had a really good safety policy on, and they had they were very clear that anyone could use any toilet, and they have these non-binary toilet, gender-neutral toilets, I should say. But it just, the whole way that it was worded, it just made me feel really safe to come out. And to be honest, that kind of dressed up kind of as me for a while, but for that, for one of the days I went quite flamboyant. I was dressing up with 4-inch heels, and I was basically at my table. I wasn't doing a lot of walking around, but I will generally nowadays just wear flats at every convention I go to, because especially at UK Games. But the point is, just it made me feel able to do this, and it made me confident. It said, if anyone hassles you for this thing, you can report them, and there are these safety measures in place. If you want to cosplay and someone's going ground and ogling you, frankly, there are these considerations.
That's
And
exactly it. And I think the thing is, because cosplay's become so massively popular and in a relatively short period of time, you know, probably in the last 5 years, I would say it's just exploded. That we've kind of gone, I think we kind of forget that there are still maybe events, particularly certain convention events that maybe, like you said, that aren't necessarily used to having those people in the space yet. And so you kind of assume, of course, there'd be cosplayers here. Of course, they'd feel safe. But unless you specifically say it, I think, you know, there are still definitely issues. You know, the fact that almost every convention now has a cosplayers not consent policy because cosplayers have been harassed is telling, you know. And I think that's very, you know, and if an event is saying we have a competition, but we don't normally have cosplayers, or we haven't had them in the past, people might be a little bit less likely to consider it as an event they want to go to, because they're thinking, oh, that looks really fun and I want to go to it, so I might just go as myself rather than I might go in a costume. Because if they're thinking, oh, I don't know, I'm a little bit anxious, it's a new event I haven't been to, it's not something I know that much about, and they don't seem to have maybe a policy on cosplay safety, then they might consider, they're more likely to consider just wearing civvies or maybe just like a partial costume than actually something, you know. And I think that's just something that people don't necessarily think about, because I think they see that cosplay is just a hobby where you turn up a costume, you have fun, and they're going, why aren't cosplayers coming to our event? And it may just be, I'm not particularly saying UK Games Expo, because I think they actually they've done some pretty good stuff in the recent years, but I think events in general can consider the fact that having front and center on your website a cosplay policy that people can look at and be like, oh, okay, cool, I am going to be safe here.
Do you think
it's really important?
I think that this would be a lovely conversation to pursue at a later date if we can, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about safety.
Yeah.
But very quickly, do you think that there does need to be a separate line on policy for cosplay safety specifically, as opposed to just general non-harassment? Because non-harassment based on, you know, general identity and sexuality and orientation and ethnicity and all these things that are visible.
Yeah, I would say they come under the same thing. I think if you have your list of things or whatever, you having a bit that says cosplay, because I think people in general, I've seen this happen at Disneyland, for goodness sake. People see a character, they don't necessarily click that it's a real person in the costume. There's kind of a weird sort of divide that people might, and like I said, I've seen it happen like at places like Disneyland, where of course they're going to be seriously considering that sort of stuff, where people will
I know
approach
in
somebody.
Disneyland it's against the rules to cosplay, you know.
Yeah,
but,
like
you know,
more meant like
people...
the paid actors
yeah,
who are
yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
as characters. They've had people approach them and treat them very badly because they're a villain or something like that, you know. Whereas like, and that's happened at conventions. I've seen people who are cosplaying as certain characters, or a character that maybe somebody like really fancies, and they've been approached by that person and then treated questionably because that person isn't thinking that person's a real you know, they're not, and it happens, and that's why the safety policies are there, is because it's not just, oh, people are going to go, oh, why are you wearing a costume? It's people will come up to somebody and maybe touch them inappropriately or say things to them. Like, I've cosplayed as villains in the past, and I've had people react to me very badly because, oh my god, why are you that villain? Why are you being them? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, because it's fun sometimes to be the bad guy. I don't know.
I'm not actually destroying.
I'm not actually this person. I don't actually think the things they think. It's just being the bad guy. And that's a really interesting reaction, and that does count as harassment when you harass somebody for that sort of stuff. And it's like, that's why I think the safety policies and stuff do need to be considered, and need to be put in place a lot of the time, because like I said, if somebody is maybe a little bit too attached to that character, or maybe thinks that character is a bad person, or all that kind of stuff, that they're like, people sometimes kind of forget, like I said, that there is a human there who might be like, oh, you know, or worse than that, you know.
Yeah,
so it can get a bit worrisome.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, it's about just having that one word cosplay called out. Don't harass people based on gender identity, ethnicity, or cosplay.
Yeah,
those two words would actually, calling it out, I think, would actually help.
Exactly,
people
and I think
make
if people
sure that it's okay.
Exactly, and I think that some of the, you know, because you can have, you know, the very important things of like obviously, I don't think that, nobody should be harassed, but obviously, like, it's really illegal to harass somebody for gender and all that kind of stuff. It's very severe and very serious. And I don't want people to think that maybe they might see cosplay as frivolous. So I think sometimes it's kind of like, let's talk about this, and then like don't harass people for their presentation and how they're dressed and all this stuff, including cosplay is actually is a way to put it in without maybe disregarding other important identity things. So, I think there are ways to do it and ways to talk about it without downplaying cosplay harassment, while also not downplaying the harassment for in other ways as well.
Because it is a weird one. Like, there's the sense that, well, you don't have to cosplay, but there's also the sense of, well, you don't have to be true to yourself. You don't have to dress up as yourself. Like, you could dress up as a boy if you were born with a certain set of characteristics.
I mean, I'm non-binary and I'm AFAB, and I don't think I cosplay almost entirely as characters who are a mab.
No, but like, my point
it's interesting. Like, there is no.
My point is that, like, the whole notion of, well, you don't have to do that. I'm not using a slippery slope argument. I'm saying that it is actually a slippery slope from saying you don't have to do that to saying, well, you don't have to express your gayness. You don't have to kiss your lover in public. Why are you doing that? It's also, well, that, it's I understand there's a limit to how much public displays of affection, but you should be at least allowed to kind of hold hands. And the truth is that the first time, like, I was out holding hands, I did have like a bit of, sorry to say this, latent homophobia in myself. Like, holding hands with a guy in public, I felt a bit like, oh, is this okay? Is this, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So if you have, so like you say, if you have your harassment policy or whatever, your safety policy for an event, and somebody goes, oh, why is cosplay on this? Well, you go, well, like you said, it's a slippery slope from saying you can harass cosplayers to saying you can harass anyone. And you have to include everybody under that, no matter how maybe in inverted commas frivolous that identity might be to somebody else. You have to be like, well, we're taking it seriously. We're going to take all of this seriously, because otherwise we take none of it seriously, and we allow people to say whatever they want and hurt people, and that's not okay. So
you have to be intolerant of intolerance.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. It would be a delight to have you on again. I did say that you were going to be on Sunday.
I know, I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Craziness.
We can kind of plan something for some points in the future. I do this every day. Hopefully you can work out another date. But for now, it is over to you. What you're up to, you can share, but only if you want to. So whether you're watching right now or whether you're watching after the fact, what are you up to? And my question for you today, unless you want to choose the final question for today, my question for everyone watching is, have you been inspired to cosplay? Have you ever thought about cosplay? Have you, do you think you would give it a go? And if you were to cosplay as a board game character, by which I mean a character that's originated in board games, which board game character would you choose to cosplay as? That's the question that I'm really interested in.
I hope that this has been fun. I hope I didn't get too deep.
No, I loved it. It was a great conversation. That's what we're all about.
Because we're super fun. People should do it. It's really fun.
Kind of going off on tangents, but sometimes getting really deep. But what are you up to today, Holly?
What am I up to? I'm going to go to the dump now. That's super
okay.
boring, isn't it? I'm going to go and do some house chores. It's very dull.
The deeper the better, says Alex. 100% I agree. Alex has been watching Marie Kondo, is going to make the house cosplay as a tidy minimalist.
You're just going to put it all in drawers for now and put that's fun. I kind of love the idea of doing that. That's quite funny.
I am actually going to probably read a couple of books. I might, today's going to be a gentle day. I might, if ideas come to me, note them down, but I'm not going to push myself for anything. My answer to my own question, if I were to cosplay as a character, I feel like I'd want to do it from one of my own games. But
no, definitely do that. That would be awesome. That would be so cool.
I feel like maybe if I were the creature, I'm thinking about my own creatures, like the creatures that are totally different, and watching out for turnips. So probably the one with 2 stockings and shoes and 2 tentacles. So my arms would be tentacles. My whole body, it would be like a kind of flubbery suit.
That'd be so
And then my
funny.
eyes, let's see, would I go for the one with the 2 eyes and no mouth, or with the one with 3? I think 2 eyes and no. I think no, the three-eyed tentacles. That's the one I would go for.
That would be so funny. See,
That would
I'm
be
kind of
it.
at the point where I'm like, if my novel gets published, I definitely want to cosplay one of the characters from it. I think it'd be hilarious.
Amazing.
I think it'd be so much fun. Or maybe I would see if like I would cosplay from one of my friends' books, and they might cosplay, that kind of thing. I think that'd be really entertaining.
I mean, I love what Josie was saying about everyone cosplaying as her. Like, I
That would
want
be
to
so fun.
run like a BezCon, and it's like, if you cosplay as one of my characters, free entry doesn't seem like enough of a reward. Like, I want to I'll shower you with love. I'll kind of give you as many hugs as you want, whether the number is 0 or
you should do
1,000,000.
this next Games Expo. You should be like, come as me, and I'll give you a free playtest or something. That would be really funny. I don't know how Games Expo works. Sorry, I'm assuming it's like a normal.
Ooh,
any other
what
convention.
if there's like a cosplay on, like, I make a special promo card, and it's not like going to be a promo forever, because that's kind of sad, but like at least for 1 year you can only get this if you cosplay as me or one of my characters.
That'd be
and it's
so
something
funny.
like a special creature for
that would be a great
wee
idea.
whimsical characters.
Love that.
Okay,
Encourage
so that
people to cosplay with
decided.
bribes. Yeah.
Promos, a promo only for cosplayers. That's what I'm doing. I'm committing to it right now.
Yes.
And recap and wrap up before we finish up. So we had a lovely chat. We talked about Holly, who has written these books, and we'll get the links, and it'll be in the YouTube description, or if you're watching on Facebook, and if you're watching on Twitter, I will reply to this with a link to that. But yeah, I'll ask you about your own social media stuff afterwards. But yeah, we started off chatting about why cosplay is brilliant. Just, it's enjoyable. You've been and the recent highlights, you've been setting up a business, you're doing more activism, fantastic, and you're writing this novel. You've got so much on the go. We talked about kind of the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of working, and we recommended Bullshit Jobs. I recommended People Play Games as a YouTube channel. It's brilliant. And we talked about how cosplay, what does it mean? Because yes, cosplay, me wearing red, is that cosplay? Is it not? It's a very blurry line. Is it cosplay if you buy a mass-produced thing? Is it cosplay when you go LARPing? It's a very blurry line, but it's all just part. And when in life, just kind of grab bits and make it you. Because I think in cosplay, you don't need to be identically like the person. That's what we talked about as well. Then we had some questionably quick questions. We talked about, yes, Holly has made some mistakes in life almost every day.
Humans.
We talked about, like, Holly's not. We didn't have a long conversation, but Holly does like umbrellas. Holly got a surprising embosser at Christmas, and not really into dollies, or into dogs, or into parrots, indeed, but it's into white chocolates. There you go. But can be a bit argumentative. And we talked about slow, gentle exercise and the magical shop, where Holly recommends that if you're into cosplay, maybe get a sewing machine, because you can get one for under 100 quid, and also the sewing Bible. But also, then we just talked about the intersection of games, and what I'm hearing is that there's 2 parts to it. Firstly, there's the specificity, like Magic the Gathering, D&D, these are more lifestyle games. These are things that you get super drawn into, like Dragon Ball Z, because there's like hundreds of episodes, hundreds of comics, you're going to get super drawn into it. Whereas, as you say, with board games, it's more like, I didn't just play one game last night, I played 3. And, that's typical. I don't play just one game all the time, and so it's like just the tiny part of it. So cosplay maybe doesn't come quite as naturally, but it might come, as long as we keep celebrating it, as long as we make sure that these people feel safe, and it is going to seep in. And as you say, people will come in with board game centric thing. It's not just because, yes, there's a comic convention happening at the same time. It is because that's what they know. And I know Jason Hodgson came in as like 2 different characters from Doctor Who, because, you know, they were coming to Dragon Meet. That's all they were going for. But they were going to have fun, and they like cosplaying, and this is a character that they know, and they've got. So maybe one day, and we did actually very briefly mention, there are people on Instagram who are already doing this, but hopefully it will seep through and trickle down. We'll see more and more of this. This will be just fantastic. And is there anything that I missed that you want to talk about?
I kind of just want to say that, like, actually, like, cosplay as a hobby, I think, is something that, like I said, anyone can do, anyone can have a go at. There is no need to be the best at it. There is no need to be like the most brilliant human in the world instantly, particularly, because it's never going to happen. Like you said, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone will screw up. Everyone will do the wrong thing every so often. That happens. But like, cosplay as a hobby is so wonderful for that, because it means you can make your first costume, you can go to an event, and people will still be like, wow, you did the thing, yay, you did that thing, you joined in. And that's kind of it. I think it's just that thing of like, you joined in, oh, we love that, yay. And I mean, most nerdy stuff is like that, I think, to a greater or lesser extent. There's a level of, you've joined in and we're so happy you're here. You know, and I think that's the thing. I think when we see, like, I think it is more likely to happen than you think. We will see people cosplaying from board games more and more, because, as I said, people are getting more into them. Over lockdown, people got really into them. And I think cosplayers are going to start latching onto those very exciting designs that you see in games. Particularly if there's games that have maybe a sequential series, so there's more add-ons. There's you know, big you can get the first game,
but you kind of want games which keep bringing in the same characters. Something like maybe what Fantasy Flights is doing with the Arkham Horror series, where they actually do keep reusing those characters, which gives them a bit more prominence and visibility.
That's what I mean. Cool. Is you kind of have that, or you do some really quite serious world building, so that people kind of, even if there's a character only in one game, that the world is still expanding, so they latch onto that character and they want to see it expand. So like, I think that's what we're going to see. But what I think is wonderful is that, much like cosplay, board games is for people who really just want to have a go, you know. And they, you know, you can start at any level. You can start with me, who's playing like Taco Cat Goat Pizza or whatever it is, you know. It's small, it's silly, it's kind of like Snap, all the way up to,
I think that is it, Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza.
All the way up to, you know, like you guys who are doing like these massive builds and all this kind of stuff, and doing some really, really cool, fun games and all that kind of stuff. So there's a level for everybody to join in, and that's the same with cosplay. You could be the cosplayer who, like I said, just goes and puts something together, very simple, and has a great time with it. The Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza of cosplay. And then you can be the people who want to do the high level international competitions, where
you start sculpting things and making,
you know, where you're like things. Essentially the Olympics for cosplayers, like that sort of thing. And it's crazy, and like the stuff people are making for that is amazing. And there's every level in between. Like I said, the same is true of board games, of video games, of like, you know, the people who want to just play maybe Pokemon on their phone are not, you know, they're still gamers, even if they're not playing 100%. Like, you know, Dark Souls, which I'm trying to play Dark Souls at the moment, and that's so stressful. I can't cope with it. You know, so I think that's the thing, is join in, have fun. Whatever level you're at, you're still a cosplayer, you're still doing it, and it doesn't matter whether you want to improve your level, you want to continue learning, or you're happy with where you are. I mean, that's everybody's choice. Everybody's level of fun, everyone's enjoyment level is going to be different, and what they take from it is going to be different. And that's kind of what I want to put across, is join in, have fun. That's it.
That was some beautiful final words, and I agree 100%. Not to undercut anything you said, I just want to acknowledge, firstly, hello Yoda, yes, just in time for us to wrap up. And in response to me saying that people like a variety of board games, I like Alex's pun, who says, I like just one, the name of a game. Yes, we've had so much fun with that one, haven't we? But
continue to have fun with it. Puns are great.
If you want to check me out, I am obviously Stuff by Bez everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all that stuff. And if you want to check out what the future streams are going to be, then there we go. Let me swap around so I can point better. There we go. So Stuff by Bez.
I'll point for you. Oh no, that way. Where is it? No, there. Yeah, there it is. Yay, I managed it. I'm so confused by this video.
Because for those who haven't been on my StreamYard, you kind of flip. But anyway, so I don't have much scheduled for the next couple of days. I'm probably going to spend tomorrow talking about recent stuff. I might actually do a quick review of one of the games that I played recently, Rocks, Present or iMagician. Let me know if you pick one of them for me to review, because I think I've already played all of them enough at this point. Monday will be something. Tuesday, going to have Adam Porter and Rob Fisher over to chat about making puzzles. Alan Paul is coming back on Wednesday. Thursday is something, and Friday is quick 5-minute thing. Every Friday is super quick, and next week I am missing a day, so please do not expect a show in 7 days' time on Saturday. I am going for personal reasons. I'm not, but yep, it's all good. And but Holly, if people want to find out where you are, how would you like to be found?
So I only have Instagram now, I think, because the rest of the internet is scary. But I'm Littlest Prince on Instagram, which is ILILIST Prince. I'll write it down. So that's on Instagram, and that's the best place to find me for almost everything, because Twitter is scary.
Let me just think I found it, and I will just get it up on the screen. That's you, right?
That's me, yeah.
Hey.
It's mostly just talking about cosplay and a few bits and pieces of stuff like that. So you can see my claptrap costume there. Because who wouldn't want to cosplay as a tiny yellow robot?
And so, thank you everyone for being here. Feel free to spread the word. We've had a couple of people who've had to skedaddle, a couple of people who've come in late, a couple of people who might not be hearing this message. But I just want to, everyone's just been super lovely, and it's been a lovely conversation. But most importantly, thank you, Holly. You've just been wonderful. It's just been a great chat.
It's been super fun. Oh, thank you so much. Like, again, I feel like I get really deep sometimes. I get really intense about cosplay.
It's good. It's great. That's what we love there. So for now,
thank you for having me.
Bye. This is Goodbye Song. Bye. Thank you for so long. Bye. This is the end of the show. Bye. And now it's time to go. Bye. This is Goodbye Song. Bye. Thank you for so long. Bye. This is the end of the show. Bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, everyone. Bye, Alex. Bye, Holly. Bye.